Hello everyone, my name is Patrick Tanke and this week's presentation is going to be covering AppArmor and HTTPS. Throughout this PowerPoint, the scope of our research will focus on features and hardening recommendations for AppArmor, Internet Information Services for Windows, and Apache for Linux. First, we will talk about AppArmor. AppArmor is a program that allows its users to limit specific applications from accessing folders or the internet if conditions are not met. It does this by providing mandatory access control or max security features to restrict resources to different profiles within AppArmor. On Ubuntu 24, AppArmor is already installed and enabled, and AppArmor profiles currently operate in two different modes. The first mode is Complain mode. This allows for a profile to be active, but not forced to follow all specific rules. However, any violations of these rules will be logged so you can access them later. Enforce mode means that the profile is active and the rules are active. In this mode, if rules are attempted to be broken, the system will not allow you to execute that specific task. When using AppArmor, if for some reason your system were to not be configured, you run the command sudo apt install AppArmor utils. This is listed on the slide, and this will install AppArmor in all of its necessary utility tools. And to check the status of AppArmor, we would use the command sudo aa status. This will show the number of profiles loaded in enforce mode, the number of profiles loaded in complain mode, and the number of disabled profiles. When using AppArmor, there are several hardening recommendations that I would recommend. First, I would install the AppArmor profile package using the code sudo apt install AppArmor profiles, and I would enable enforce mode on any applications that you would consider a security risk. Next, I would create different profiles for all different applications using the code sudo aa genproof. This is a profile application that helps you assign permissions to different profiles, which would be the applications on your computer. And lastly, when programs are misbehaving or audit messages are sent, they are all logged. This program uses AA logproof, and using that command, you are able to scan log files in AppArmor, audit messages, and review them from which profile they came from. Next, we will talk about HTTPS, also known as Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. First, it's important to understand the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. This chart was provided by geeksforgeeks.org, and I have my source down here on the left. But HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. HTTP uses port 80. HTTPS uses port 443. HTTP works in the application layer. HTTPS works at the transport layer. HTTP does not use encryption. HTTPS does use encryption. And these are just a few things that were touched on. HTTP is typically faster, so it'd be used for like video chatting, where not every single packet needs to necessarily be secure. It's more about getting a fast connection. But anything that needs to be censored or with a high level of confidentiality, HTTPS is going to have to be enabled or should be enabled. Other important information to know about HTTPS is that HTTPS uses an encryption protocol to encrypt the communications. This is called the TLS protocol, or Transport Layer Security, and it was formerly known as Secure Socket Layer, or SSL communication. This protocol secures communications by using what's known as an asymmetric public key infrastructure. This would mean that the private key is controlled by the owner of the website and it is kept, and then the user or the person trying to access the website would be given a public key, and they use that key to interact with the server in a way that is secure and encrypted. So, when properly configured, an HTTPS connection guarantees three things: confidentiality, the visitor's connection is encrypted, obscuring URLs, cookies, and other sensitive metadata; authenticity, the visitor is talking to the real website and not an impersonator through a person in the middle; and integrity, that the data sent in between the visitor and the website has not been tampered with or modified in any way. HTTPS is crucial to prevent people from having their information broadcast or manipulated in a way that is easy to access. Next, we're going to look at IIS, or Internet Information Service. This is a web server software package designed and built by Microsoft specifically for Windows Server. It provides a secure and scalable platform for hosting websites and web applications, and IIS supports HTTPS by allowing administrators to bind SSL and TLS certificates to websites. This ensures encrypted communication is taking place over your Windows server. When hardening your IIS, I recommend doing a few things. First, I would enforce strong SSL and TLS protocols. The Transport Layer Security Protocol is the latest industry version of security standards designed to help protect the privacy of information. TLS 1.3 is the most up-to-date version, and to keep information as secure as possible, I would disable outdated and insecure protocols such as SSL 2.0 or 3.0. Whatever you do, do not use SSL protocols installed by default because it sets the TLS version to SSL 3 and TLS 1.0. These are both obsolete and have known security vulnerabilities. Next, I would configure your logging and monitoring within the system. So the HTTP logging element allows you to configure your IIS to generate log entries for only successful, failed, or both requests. By default, HTTP logging is enabled on IIS 7 and above. You can view the log file for a site at any time and see which requests are failing, what requests are succeeding, and troubleshoot from there. I would also advise looking into a real-time threat monitoring company using a SIEM. Lastly, I would set up a URL rewiring or filtering application. So to do this, URL rewriting allows you to modify incoming URL requests. It can be used to enforce HTTPS instead of just HTTP. And this just provides a more secure connection for anybody browsing your website. Lastly, we'll talk about Apache for Linux. Apache is fully known by Apache HTTP Server and has some key features including cross-platform support. It can run on Linux and other Unix-like systems, but it also has supports for Windows and Mac OS, although for the sake of this class, we will just be using Linux. It has virtual hosting, so it supports multiple domains on a single server. It has a lot of performance optimization included in with like caching, compression, and load balancing modules built in. And as far as security goes, it supports SSL and TLS certificates. It has regular security updates, and it works with various different scripting languages such as PHP, Python, Perl, or Ruby. So when hardening an Apache server, there are several recommendations that I have. First, I would update it to use HTTPS encryption. Apache by default uses HTTP protocol, which is weak, insecure, and prone to eavesdropping. Implementing HTTPS will improve your site's security, and you can do this by encrypting your site using a SSL or TLS certificate. This will switch your default this will switch the default HTTP protocol to HTTPS, making it much harder for anyone to intercept or decipher communication from your server. Next, I would disable directory log listings. Disabling the directory listing in Apache is always a good practice for security reasons. This allows people who do not have permission to view the contents of your directory. to have zero chance of exposing any sensitive information that they would be able to access by viewing the directory. And lastly, I would hide the Apache OS and version. By default, the Apache web server displays its version and operating system if you browse the wrong URL of the website. And this can expose host information that is private. It is never a good idea to display your web server's information. This can be a gift to hackers when they're trying to get into your system. This just adds another layer of security, making for it harder for people to get your web server applications information. Here is a list of the sources I used to put together this presentation. And thank you guys so much for listening.